Hello, I am Day 9.
I'm Husky.
And this is game number 3 between Alternate Attacks DarkFoRcE and Anonymous, aka IMMvp. And though I didn't cast last game directly with Husky, I did see it, and I do not envy the fact that you had to solo cast that game.
Yeah, oh my god. It was, I believe the in-game timer was at like an hour and 20 minutes. That is officially the longest game I have ever seen ever. And I've been casting StarCraft for like over 3 years. And wow. Because I remember the one at MLG between, who was it? It was Boxer and
Rain.
Boxer and Rain. And that one was like an hour and 1 minute. Is that what it was? Something like that. And I was able to cast a best of 3 series that went to game 3. All were macro games in the duration of that one game. So that was the finals all wrapped up into one game. But of course, we still have many, many games for you. And again, it is tied up 1-1. DarkFoRcE was showing that playstyle you were mentioning, Sean.
Oh,
long macro, tons of creep.
The slowest army possible.
Yeah, I felt like I was watching Goody, but in Zerg form, with just those slow timings with everything, very methodical.
Oh, I love those Nidus Worms, though. That was really fun trying to peel the game open. And, you know, you gotta at least be feeling somewhat shaken as DarkFoRcE after a game like that, thinking, well, I lost game 1 pretty easily. And to take one win off the best in the world, I'm gonna need over an hour.
Yeah.
You can go watch any Disney animated movie, and when it's done, I'll be done with my game too.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true, Sean. Like, that just shows you the robustness of players like MVP, especially the Terran players. They know how to turtle man, and they know how to hang on until the very last unit. And look at this, walling in with the good old command center.
And you know, this is a smart play in a vacuum to go, oh yes, look at him walling off with a supply depot and a command center. I mean, letting that drone in, very cool, locking him in. And he's going, wow, command center, gas, barracks. So it looks like we're going to see another mech play. I love the idea that MVP plays almost an hour-and-a-half game and says, all right, my map choice is Tal'Darim because I want to play a long macro game where I'm comfortable.
Oh, man, that is true. Now, players like MVP who practice day in and day out and they're at the top of their game, for the most part, those players are very comfortable in long macro games. Now, a lot of players who may not be living in a professional house or anything like that, most of their practice may be coming from playing on the ladder. And are they going to be able to play as many long macro games? Not really. However, if there's any macro Zerg we saw it that can take out MVP, it is going to be DarkFoRcE. This very easily could turn into a 20 to 30 minute game. I don't know if we're going to see another hour and 20 minute game, but I don't know if my mind, body, and soul can handle that right now.
But
John.
I don't not think that couldn't happen. There's the factory going down. I mean, this is such a bold play. I mean, the timing lines up great, getting the double orbital command very quickly. And it looks like as we're about to hit the 5-minute mark, Marine number 1 is coming up. This is just a very funky looking play. And if you're DarkFoRcE, wow, it looks like he's just going to go straight for a Roach War, and DarkFoRcE is going to bring the noise right off the bat. He actually only has 1 queen out at this point. That is a real surprise.
Yeah, Sean, what do you think about the probability of this attack working? Because on one hand, his opponent has no units, but on the other hand, he has to run 1,000,000 miles. So any predictions on kind of if this is a good thought process or not?
I mean, it's going to be really tough for MVP to hold this off. He's going to have some very nice micro, and he's going to have to not move with this orbital command for a long time. It is so tempting always to be moving out with it. And if MVP builds a 3rd command center, I will laugh and laugh. Let's see if he gets a tech lab add-on at the barracks. And it looks like he is not. Wow, he's actually going to be going for 3 barracks. There's the 2 Hellions popping out right now. And we see the Roaches are already en route. 7 Roaches out right now, moving straight across the map.
Yeah, we should be seeing some reinforcements being made. It does look like DarkFoRcE ended up losing an Overlord there. He's no longer supply block, though. But the problem is that he is really close to that 44 supply. It does look like MVP going to be moving out, but I don't think this bunker is going to be up in time. And if DarkFoRcE is able to get lucky and get inside the main base right away, this could be devastating. There goes the bunker right now. Inside the main base, we could see this command center lifting off to complete that wall in. Or no, it looks like he's confident in his ability to defend this straight up with a wide open door.
Wow, this is going to be an incredibly thin defense right here. We see the Roaches already moving forward. This bunker will be able to finish in time, it looks like. And oh, the SCVs surrounding from the backside. It looks like these barracks are finishing just in time, and MVP is going to shake it off like it is nothing. What incredible defense there by MVP. Most players would have just shattered at that very moment. But here's MVP continuing to be bold even with his own workers. That's one hell of a way to transfer workers to a new base.
Yeah, that's one of the things about SCVs in that situation is Roaches have a lot of health. They have that armor. They're very good at staying alive, but they don't do a lot of damage right away in small numbers. So it's not like if you had 4 Zealots attacking SCVs. It's very different because Roaches do attack extremely slowly. So that was a really good read there by MVP, and he knew going into that battle exactly what he was going to do, and it ended up working out perfectly. Now, I don't feel like DarkFoRcE was all in at that point, but losing that many Roaches this early, I mean, that's easily, just a larva alone was 7 drones that he could have been having mined right now, rather than those Roaches. Now, can he kill off these Hellions? Well, he has very, very little for defense. Does finish up that Spine Crawler, so he should be okay. And it does look like MVP deciding to kind of slowly bring this back into a macro-style game.
I'm still curious what he's going to be doing with this reactor factory, whether he really wants to build more Hellions with it. Again, he is all about the map control, about locking down the Zerg player, making him stay at home. But wow, DarkFoRcE is not going to have any of that. Easily picks off 2 of those Hellions. 1 will almost certainly fall in the retreat, but if 2 would fall, that would actually be pretty big for DarkFoRcE.
Yeah, that was a really good read by DarkFoRcE, able to realize, hey, these units are out on the map. I need to kill them. Oh, juke there with the Hellion.
Whoa.
A little bit of micro to keep it alive. And that does force the Zerglings back home. You're wondering what he's going to do with the reactor. Well, he decided to throw down that Star Force.
He's deciding to play Terran versus Protoss.
Yes, absolutely. Getting out Marines, Marauders, and the Medivacs. Mixing in a Hellion or 2. Now, we do have that Baneling Nest starting up for DarkFoRcE as well as Layer Tech. So right now, supply is going to be slightly favoring the Zerg. But, Sean, would you say that either player is in a pretty bad spot right now?
I think that MVP is going to be feeling very comfortable in this position because he knows that the Zerg player is really not going to get a very fast third up. It's all been delayed by that early Roach play. Zerg can get a third, but he kind of has to work hard for it. MVP, on the other hand, is not really intending on taking a third very quickly at all, and he's going to be able to harass with these drops. And this mix is so threatening on this map, not just due to the drops, but because if you get Medivacs and tanks there, your Expo may be doomed.
Yeah, and that's very difficult for a Zerg player to deal with because you're always wanting to get those surrounds on those units, but if they're kind of parked up against that wall, it can be difficult to do that. We're going to have to split up your Roaches and Zerglings. It does look like that third base is going to be up and running, but this is at around the 11-minute mark, and that, I would say, is about as late as you can get an expansion as a Zerg player without being completely out of the game. I mean, just the timing. I mean, we've seen Zergs get third bases at around the 4 or 5 minute mark, so it just shows you kind of on the scale of macro versus micro, he is flat on the micro end. He does have his Spire on the way right now. Needs to start saving up that gas if possible. He is doing just that. But it's not going to be a comfortable position for him moving forward. He's going to have to do a lot of damage and be very, very cost effective with his first couple of Mutalisks.
Spire almost done right now. It looks like MVP, I bet you, has already loaded things into Medivacs, and indeed he do. Look at him go. He's going to be trying to do a drop into the main. I think that this is great timing on his part. Picking off the Overlords.
Yeah, he's going to unload here and see, or the Zerg player is going to see exactly what's going on. Now, the positioning of these Banelings is going to be pretty good. Just needs to make sure that he doesn't allow them to be focus fired down. The drop now continuing over to the natural. We'll see if he decides to fully commit here or if he's going to split up these drops or just do a full-on retreat.
Uh-oh.
Which it does look like the defense of DarkFoRcE is pretty good. Look at that save once again from MVP. Even going to be going for an Overlord and a Queen here. Oh, the Queen gets away.
And he
No,
gets it.
Dies there. And really committing, though, heavily to this attack. Nice Baneling hit
Wow.
right there. That is going to get locked down by DarkFoRcE. That's exactly the momentum he needed.
But look at this, MVP again, so good at just keeping his units alive, rushing with a full army there, picking off a Queen, saving the Medivac, and suddenly is once again putting the pressure back on DarkFoRcE. Needs to siege up quickly, though. The Banelings are rolling in on creep, and he gets the good shot off on the Banelings. Can he get another one? Banelings trying to snuggle their way forward, and there's the hit.
That one hit alone made cleaning that up much, much easier. That was the Mr. Clean of that army, as now the Terran Germ presence is no longer a threat, at least for now. We do see that command center building up at the natural after that attack. DarkFoRcE was able to get back in the lead of supply. He does have 6 more Mutalisks being produced, as well as a lot of drones here. So he really needs to saturate that third base as soon as he possibly can. Could even consider making a fourth. He does have that hatchery in his main base for macro purposes. But at this point, it goes into the standard Terran defending against Mutalisks. But I feel like MVP is going to be fine here.
Yeah, MVP, I think, is in decent shape. I would have liked to have my third up earlier if I were Terran. We're seeing MVP kind of fall behind in the food count, but he's not dead, and he does have a little bit of time to build these reactors, so he's going to have a little bit of an edge later on. But right now, DarkFoRcE is the one with all the control in his back pocket. I mean, he can easily take extra expansions right now, easily begin getting upgrades and power drones. I actually think that he should do one of those. He does have that 68 drone count, so a few more would be great, but, you know, even doing something like expanding to these extreme sides,
right.
Good strategy to do when you're getting that very fast Ling Muta army.
Yeah, and also what a lot of the macro style Zergs do, which DarkFoRcE is definitely a macro style Zerg, is when they expand those corners, just get a lot of spine crawlers and support crawlers at those expos. It buys a lot of time, even versus siege tanks trying to lock that down. It just takes time to kill those, and time is a very, very valuable resource in StarCraft 2, and we do see him taking that fourth base right now. It's not in a faraway place, but instead is going to be somewhere that is easier to defend with mutas and those Zerglings. And right now he's trying to deny that third as long as he possibly can. Zerg, if there's one thing that they're good at, it's denying expansions. So DarkFoRcE trying to use that power right now, just making sure that there's nothing hidden on the map to allow MVP to quickly get back in this.
DarkFoRcE has a good amount of map control. I do think that left watchtower needs to be snatched up immediately. This is actually gigantic for MVP that he has control of this. This makes him feel comfortable with his expansion. He can easily position everything. And there, oh no! I mean, even being able to see the Mutalisks, it's such an easy problem to fix, and they're finally taking it down. Now MVP is in the dark exactly the way he should be.
Yeah, exactly. However, since he did have that tower, he was able to amply prepare. He already has missile turrets up at that expansion. So DarkFoRcE, I mean, I'm comparing in my mind, like, Dong-Regu Mutalisks versus any Mutalisks that are not Dong-Regu Mutalisks, because the thing is that they can be such a huge benefit to your army, and just being able to slow your opponent, especially since he's going to be going for this hive tech, and he wants to be delaying this push if possible, but that is so much stuff out of MVP that these Mutalisks need to find somewhere to do some damage so he doesn't get hit again like we saw in the last game right when his hive tech is getting up.
Such a scary push from MVP, and a very basic push as well. Just wait until he has 1/1 upgrade before he goes, and now he's the Mutalisk stepping on, and MVP is not slowing down at all, though. He is confident that his repair, his counterattack is going to be scary enough. Trying to stay on the far side of the creep. He's not going to siege up on the creep yet. There he is, staying right off it. Banelings from the backside. Oh, some big hits on those Banelings, doing some big damage, but it looks like the Baneling count might be a little too high. Whoa. But there are Marines everywhere. Where did MVP get all of these units from? But amazingly, DarkFoRcE, I think, has just enough to defend.
Yeah, he will be able to hold that off. I don't know if that's the most cost-effective way of holding it off, simply because a lot of those Banelings got taken out. I believe it was either manually detonated or one-shot by the siege tanks there.
Yeah.
But regardless, MVP is going to fall back. He still does have his medevacs, and really DarkFoRcE ended up losing basically everything, and he also invested in a lot of larvae to defend that, but he does have his Greater Spire on the way, and if he can hit a timing where he can get out Broodlords when there's still only Marine Siege Tank, that is when the Broodlords are going to be most effective. No pesky Vikings to shoot them down, but MVP staying on top of upgrades as well, and his macro allowing him to kind of macro off that third base. He can get a lot of stuff here fairly quickly.
Oh, I really think MVP is just waiting for his 2-2 to finish. He's very responsible about always waiting until that time. But as we see, it's about 50 more seconds till the Spire is done, and about 50 more seconds until the upgrades are done. So it's going to be a very, very close call. However, MVP, you'll see, never gets over-eager. In fact, he never even really panics in his gameplay. He just says 2-2 is a good time to push. I'm going to wait for that. And here he is pushing right before it finishes. Perfect timing, so they'll be done right when the engagement begins.
Yep, that's absolutely smart. That shows you the level of play that these players are playing at. You see that 3 times. And that just shows you that right when he gets out across the map, he's going to be confident that his upgrades will be strong enough to defeat his Zerg opponent. He's going to be vastly outnumbered as far as the upgrades go, but we should see Broodlords on the field here fairly soon. However, the Raider Spire's done, but there's no Corruptors in sight to actually turn into the Broodlords.
Oh,
so he needs to be careful here. But it does look like the Expo on the right side may go down, but this is leaving a pretty big hole in MVP's defense.
And there it looks like the siege tanks going to siege up onto that high ground, trying to pick everything off from above. And there, finally, the siege up, and everything else is pulling back to the backside. You see the Thors at the front to try to absorb as much damage as they can, but they will get surrounded and eliminated almost immediately. And it looks like MVP sprinting back with everything to try to get back to his home base to stay alive and defend the third base. Looks like it will be going down. Another base up for DarkFoRcE, but the counterattack at MVP's natural. These Zerglings have pretty much picked apart all those mining SCVs. DarkFoRcE again is coming up with a little bit of a lead and is continuing to expand.
That's exactly what he needs to do right now, Sean. This expansion got to be going down, and that's why defending that expansion can be tough if you don't have the Meatlisk in position to do so, as he's going to lose a lot to just 2 tanks. So while he was able to kill the natural of MVP, I mean, MVP is also able to get an expansion at a much cheaper cost. We do now see Infestors being used on the field, which is going to be very, very smart because that, well, simply put, is a lot of Marines, and fungal growth is pretty darn good versus them. And we do see the continued production of a lot of units out of MVP. It does look like both players had around the same supply, so these battles could go either way, but MVP is still looking pretty scary with the amount of units he has.
Yeah, MVP just really, really gets how his Marine tank positioning should work. I mean, this move was absolutely brilliant, leaving only 1 tank there. Oh my god, a gigantic fungal, and he's desperately trying to pick everything up that he can into those medevacs to keep them alive. And how is that humanly possible, Husky? He managed to keep a lot of those Marines alive.
Yeah, now if there was another Infestor there, he would have been able to fungal growth those medevacs, have them explode when they're full of units. There's a couple of Broodlords. Now he needs to be careful not to have stem Marines right under his Broodlords, but that does look like his siege tank's going to be going down, and that is a nice little victory for him, as anytime you can reduce the amount of siege tanks you can, man, those Broodlings chasing down those Marines, not only in the air, but also on the ground. And it does look like denying an expansion once again with the Overlord pooping out creep. A drop moving out to the right side, but if DarkFoRcE can get these expansions up and running on the left side, he may actually be in pretty good shape.
But it looks like DarkFoRcE didn't see this drop coming, and this is going to be a very scary moment for MVP as he's realizing, my god, Zerg has a lot more expansions than I thought he did. Unfortunately, they're not quite mining yet. It looks like MVP still going for the juicier expansions along the sides. Gosh, this is just great attack timing. He has pulled everything back, and again, he's going to be waiting until 3-3 to push out again.
Oh, wow, I can't believe he may actually get away with taking out this Expo. He needs to start unloading the Marines right there. He does indeed. Can DarkFoRcE prevent these expansions from going down, sending all of his units here, really overcommitting to just one little drop here, which means the drop on the right side is going to be much more powerful. That's why you have to split up these units as quickly as possible. And yet another drop over here. MVP doing everything he can to get back into this game. He has taken out almost every single drone at this location. This is exactly what he needed to do, and is now way ahead in the supply.
Wow, DarkFoRcE getting pushed and pulled in every direction, manages to keep 2 of these bases alive. Now sending Zerglings up to the north so he can retake this as a solid 4th, but he somehow loses his 3rd base. That is the most secured expansion, looking at the map, and even manages to load up into the main, peeling more forces away. And in the meantime, MVP is just getting a bigger and bigger Marine, Thor, tank force. Looking so good, having all those upgrades done as well.
Yeah, now this is one of those situations where if all 3 of those drops got locked down, MVP would be in a horrible spot. But his multitasking, literally a 3-pronged attack, which is still continued inside the main base, may get this queen, which is just so annoying, because there's nothing more annoying than having to make queens again at the 30-minute mark to start that inject larva once again. But this just shows you the importance of multitasking. One player was doing it phenomenally. DarkFoRcE tried to clean up those attacks, but was just committing way too many units to it. And the army of our Terran player going to be nearly maxed out. So DarkFoRcE needs to get a lot of minerals really quickly. But this unit composition out of MVP, I feel, is like the perfect balance for what he needs to do here.
And it looks like the Infestors have been caught off guard a little bit. Have there really been, like, no more Broodlords made? There were, like, 3 on the map at one point, but they are just long gone. We see that there are 5 Broodlords somewhere, but, I mean, I just cannot for the life of me locate them. Where they've been pushed and pulled by these drops is just a mystery. I'm looking as hard as I can for them, and they are nowhere, Husky.
Yeah, he's going to need every single unit that he can, because this army, not only is it nearly maxed out, but it's actually in a pretty good position on the map. There's the Broodlord showing up right now trying to take out these Thors, which does mean everything else will be undefended except for by Marines. However, it does look like the expansion has gone down. Is there going to be enough Vikings here? A huge bungle on the Vikings to try and soften them enough, but I just don't think there's enough ground army from our Zerg player continuing to blanket those fungal growths and trying to displace them with the spells. But what he really needed in this battle was a bunch of Zerglings. They were nowhere to be found.
And it looks like he's sprinting up. He's going to be able to pick off one Viking or two Broodlords. And now it looks like the bottom right is completely vulnerable. Burrowed Infestors will get scanned. And oh, there's the good game.
Wow.
MVP with just such solid decision making. Every single engagement he stepped into favored him.
Yeah, now DarkFoRcE was able to get himself in a pretty decent position, but MVP's multitasking. It is so hard to do 3 drops at a time while staying on top of your macro and continuing to micro those units around. And I feel like that was the ultimate turning point in this game, where it went from fairly even or even a slight advantage to DarkFoRcE to just a completely one-sided slaughter there at the end, showing you the importance and the power of Terran drops. So that does mean we are now up 2-1 in MVP's favor. So we're going to find out exactly what happens here in this series. It could be our last game to see who is going to be in the finals. So I'm Husky.
I'm Day 9. Let's see if DarkFoRcE can pull the comeback or whether MVP will close it out and retain that title of best in the world. See ya after this.